All right. Well, great, Robin. Um, Thanks for having me, and I won't talk for my full time because I'm starting so late, and I want to keep things on. But I'll go. Is it okay if I go like 15 minutes into the break, and then? Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, I came to this conference first when Robin was about 12. She started this thing. And so it's just a delight to see it carry on. And I really love the title, Take Back Your Health. You know, there's an empowerment there. There's a proactive element there. It's not, give us back our health. It's not, create a government agency to ensure that we have our health. It's take back your health. It's a very, grassroots. I'm going to move this aside. I think those are working against each other. It's a very grassroots, libertarian type of thing, which is great. And now, just a housekeeping thing for me. I've got to fly to Atlanta tomorrow, so I'm not going to be here all day. So I'll be here, until about 11 or 12, and then I'm going to be leaving. So if you want a book or if you want a signature or whatever, just jump on me there and do it early. Don't put it off. And since I won't be here, and I know the whole weekend we're trying to get this as a fundraiser for Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. Lest I forget it, let me just make a point that that I think when Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund, of course, some of the board members cringe at this, but when it's as powerful as the NRA, when America is as interested in the freedom for their food choice as they are their freedom for their gun choice, we will be a different culture. And I look forward to that day. So do please participate in the fundraising efforts for Farm to Consumer. I don't know of another organization in the world that is doing more. In fact, the last time I was in Australia last spring, I stayed an extra day to work with a group of about 12 that are trying to launch a Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund in Australia, and to help them get going. So why in the world do we need a Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund? I mean, good grief. The supermarkets are full of food. You walk in the supermarket, and I mean, there's never been so much food, right? I mean, there's and color packages, of lots of pretty colors and pretty little red barns and silos next to them, and chickens sitting on fence posts next to the Purdue chicken, and crowing at the early morning, and what you find is that what's in the supermarket is a very carefully orchestrated option. It's an option that fits the orthodoxy of our day. Now, those of us alive today, we look back at our ancestors 500 years ago, and don't we kind of laugh at, can you believe that those people thought the earth was flat? I mean, really? They thought the earth was flat? But 500 years ago, if you went into a room like this and said, the earth is round, well, they'd have thought you were a nutcase. They'd have put you in a little room with men running around in white suits asking strange questions, right? It's interesting when you look at orthodoxy, every single society, every single civilization has its orthodoxy. And, flat earth was one a while back. There was a time in our country when it was assumed that slavery was fine. Many countries, in fact, assumed that slavery was fine. Many countries today many cultures today still assume slavery is fine, or abuse of women, different things. How about a time when women's suffrage was considered silly? The powers that be, the orthodoxy was, why in the world would women want to vote? Coming closer, how about the orthodoxy that lard and butter are bad and hydrogenated vegetable oil is what you need? And that was universally accepted, right? And now look back. I mean, how fast did that orthodoxy last? Not very long. It was a blip, right? But now we look back, and the same people who were saying get rid of your butter and lard and use hydrogenated vegetable oil are now saying, it's not okay to use a little bit of hydrogenated vegetable oil. You need to use none. There is no safe level. Imagine going from the darling of the, as Sally Fallon says, the food dictocrats up here to, something that's as bad as methamphetamine. So that's a pretty big change in orthodoxy. How about for 30 years, I call it the U.S. duh, right? Was taking farmers like me to free steak dinners to teach us how to feed dead cows to cows, because this was the new progressive scientific way to make cows fatter, bigger, cheaper, and so we feed dead cows to cows. And of course, farmers like us who didn't buy into that, we were branded condescendingly as Luddites, barbarians, Neanderthals, anti-science, anti-progressive, rebels, all these kinds of things. And then, of course, 30 years later, there's this kind of global, oops, maybe we shouldn't ought to done that, And now, of course, we don't feed dead cows to cows, but we're still, my neighbors are still feeding chicken manure, feathers, and chicken carcasses to their cows. They can't feed cows, but chickens and whatever else they can cobble together. And so this is the orthodoxy of our day. So here's my question, and this is one that has been very helpful, I think, in couching where we are. My question is, 100 years from now, as we laugh about the orthodoxy of our day, 100 years from now, I wonder what our descendants will look back at 2015 at our orthodoxies and laugh and say, man, were they nuts. I wonder what those will be. I'd like to make some suggestions, because it is this orthodoxy that then defines the entire system and creates a de facto inquisition against the heresy. That's the orthodoxy versus the heresy. That's the conflict, okay? And so, we don't burn at the stake today. No, we just, surround with SWAT teams and confiscate food, and we use, sheriff's deputies to come out and do farm raids and food raids. We do blue collar inquisition from insurance companies that you can't sell here unless you pass GAP certified. That's good agricultural practice. Well, good agricultural practice is not tomatoes in compost, and it certainly isn't chickens running around on the grass. It is, confinement and all that sort of thing. So there are both government, legal, de facto, business kind of things that preclude the heretical alternative from accessing the market and from you being able to get that. So let's look at a couple of these. One is that food is dirty. The production phase of food is dirty. And so we don't want it around people. And so it's okay to have a dog and a cat, but 2 chickens in your house or your backyard, no, we can't do that, because that's an agricultural animal. The others are pets, and that's okay. Forget the fact that one dog makes more manure than 11 chickens, and that manure is highly toxic. I mean, you can eat chicken manure. You can put it in chocolate chip cookies and eat it. I mean, it's okay. There's no hazard there, all right? But because food production has some sort of a that's not what sophisticated people do. That's not what technical people do. This Jeffersonian intellectual agrarian idea, that was back in the Dark Ages. Now we're in the Star Trek futures, where we're all going to be able to levitate ourselves away from being tied to this dirty soil umbilical. We're better than that today. And so we have a fundamental food segregation orthodoxy in our culture. A food segregation orthodoxy. Not integrated. It's segregated. In fact, In fact, and I use that word because it is a powerful word. The word segregation is a powerful word. But we have exchanged racial segregation for economic segregation, for food choice segregation, for medical segregation, for insurance segregation. And we have the haves and the have-nots, and the people that are on the inside, the people that aren't. I call it, it's a fraternity of ideology, okay? And one of the fraternities of ideology is that food production is not something you can bring into the urban sector, because food production that's farming, that's dirty. And so we have homeowners associations, for example, that criminalize everything from, you know, a garden to a couple of chickens to a clothesline. I mean, we can't have a clothesline in a homeowners association. That smacks of you know, socioeconomically challenged people, right? And so we have entire ordinances. We have cities and homeowners associations. But this segregated idea. Listen. Good food should be integrated in our lives. This whole segregation idea carries over to the fact that sophisticated people don't cook. You know, somebody else is supposed to cook. You know, actually dicing, slicing, smelling the onions simmering in the skillet. You know, that's for people that don't have a good white-collar salary, right? That don't sit in front of a Dilbert cubicle all day and work for the man. That's what you're supposed to do to be successful in life. And, I'm still, emotionally damaged from the last time I went into high school to the guidance counselor, and she found out that I wanted to be a farmer, and she went into apoplectic seizures over wasting all those brains, that I wasn't going to go into, some whatever, to become a professional. And we have this condescending spirit in our society, and I would suggest that 100 years from now, perhaps we will laugh at our stupidity as we segregated and condescended toward farming, toward agriculture, and toward food production. When, for example, we realize, those 36 million acres of lawn in our country can grow a lot of food. And those 36 million acres housing and feeding recreational horses can grow a lot of food. That's 71 million acres, lawns and recreational horses. That's enough folks to feed the entire country without a single farm. But you do it with an integrated system. And listen, I'm a big believer in integrating chickens into the household. I want you to think about it. What better, if you've got teenagers, what better role model for teenagers could you ask for than a chicken? I mean, of all the farm animals, a chicken is the first one up in the morning, all right? Cows are second, pigs are last. So if you're late, late morning, maybe you were a pig in a Freeman's life. But a chicken's the first one up in the morning. I mean, as soon as light comes, they're up off the roost and they're out. Okay. Then look what they do. They spend all day pecking around, eating bugs and turning trash into treasure. I mean, kitchen scraps and banana peelings and rotten meat, disgusting maggot-infested stuff. Man, give me those maggots. Just eat those boogers out, right? I mean, they take all this garbage and trash, turn it into treasure, by laying a couple eggs for you, all right? And then as soon as the sun starts to go down in the afternoon, where do they go? They go to bed. They go to sleep. They don't go out and caterwaul around the town like your cat, your dog, or whatever, or your teenagers. I mean, they go to bed. So think about the role model for your teenagers. I mean, you get up early in the morning, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, spend all day turning trash into treasure, and then go to bed at night. I mean, if that isn't a good role model for a teenager, I don't know what is. And what I'm suggesting is that as a culture, that our disaffection, our disconnect, and our ignorance toward this visceral, participatory dependence and appreciation of these most basic foundations of life create a sophisticated notion in our culture that is ultimately, personally disempowering. We don't know anything about our food, so we don't know anything about our nutrition. We don't know anything about our nutrition, so we don't know anything about our health. And so we have made a bunch of experts over here, the medical community, and we view ourselves as basically machines, and if a part goes bad, we go to the mechanic. Well, let me tell you something. Food is not mechanical. Animals are not mechanical. They are fundamentally biological. This is the big difference between machines and life. All right? Life is not mechanical. Listen, if a bearing goes out in your car and it starts going thump, 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 all right, you can get down to that bearing and you can just put some grease on it, some oil on it. You can apologize to it. You can lay hands on it. You can rest. You say, "You want to rest? I'm sorry, I pushed you too hard. You want to rest? I'll listen to the radio for 10 minutes, let you rest." I mean, we can do all sorts of things. You get in your car and you go again, and what's that bearing going to do? Thump, thump, thump. Okay. Living things can heal. Machines don't heal. My dad used to say when we got out, started using the chainsaw or whatever, he said, "Remember, machines don't forgive. If you abuse a machine, you can apologize and it cuts your arm off. You can apologize to it all day and it doesn't feel anything." Right? I mean, think, somebody might drive a real nice car, Did you ever come up by that car, wow, you're a neat car, pretty car, nice car, and have the car like an animal, kind of snuggle up to you, and kind of move off its tires and move over to you. Yeah, pet me some more right there, No, a car does that. It's just a machine, all right? And the difference between life and machines is that biological things can actually heal. They can forgive. They can forgive abuse. They can forgive things. And aren't we glad that that's one of the distinctives of life, right? Our bodies can infuse their abuse. We can forgive spousal problems, okay? I mean, that's how we live, all right? That's the difference between living things and machines. And so food is not just a mechanical thing. We have this notion in our culture that we should segregate processing away from production. So we have now a lot of zoning laws and zoning restrictions that say, okay, you can have a farm, that's for production, but if you want to bottle the milk, or you want to butcher the chicken, or you want to turn the pork into charcuterie or bologna, that's manufacturing. On our farm where we are, we're in an agricultural zone, and farmland, and it's illegal for us, for example, to have a woodworking shop. Now, we have 450 acres of prime walnut and oak and maple hardwoods, okay? And we have a sawmill. We can only saw logs from our place, so if a neighbor cuts a log and brings it over, it's illegal for me to mill his log because sawmilling is manufacturing, even though my mill is 800 pounds and smaller than most people's water ski boat, okay? But because sawmilling is manufacturing and not, farming is growing the tree. Ah, the wonderful tree, beautiful tree. That's farming. But if you turn that tree into lumber or turn the lumber into a child's toy or a table, that's manufacturing and illegal in agricultural areas. The last dairy farm in Baltimore County, here very close to where we are, is now suing their trustees of their farm preservation. They put their farm in one of these conservation easements, the first one in the county, and they're now having to sue the conservation easement trustees because they're trying to stay alive as the last dairy in Baltimore County. And they're realizing the only way we can do this, the city's moved up around us, is to bottle and sell our milk directly to our neighbors that have all built up around us. But the trustees say bottling milk is manufacturing, that's not dairying. And so they're having to sue their easement holder for the right to be able to bottle their own milk on their own place and sell it to their neighbors because that's a segregated economic. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? So here's the deal. Here's the deal. In order to enter the conventional food marketing system, there is a labyrinth of orthodoxies to get through, which is, of course, why things like relay food, are moving forward. And that's why when people ask me, why don't you want to be in the supermarket? I say, be in the supermarket, I don't even want there to be supermarkets. Supermarkets have only been here since 1946. That's not that long ago. There might even be somebody alive here in a room that was here in 1946. Jack. Oh, Jack stepped out. All right. Oh, he's right there. Okay. That's not that far ago. That's that far ago. Okay. We lived without them then, and we can live without them now. We are seeing this kind of food safety policy suffocate now many outfits. For example, if you have to have a $200,000 kitchen in order to make chicken stock to sell, how many people are going to have that kitchen? Not very many. See, the tragedy of these what I call salvation by regulation. Another orthodoxy of our day is that we can make enough laws to make people honest. Well, the Romans had an axiom. They said you could tell the strength and vitality of any culture by how many laws it had. And the more laws it had, the more fragile the culture, the more closer to collapse. Listen, the question is, what if a person wants to take the choice of taking the responsibility for their own food? If you want to come to my farm, look around, smell around, ask around, and you and I want to do, as consenting adults, to use loaded language, and we want to participate in this this food orgy of artisanal consumption, why is it any of the bureaucracy's business that we've decided to work together? Okay? Because, see, here's the orthodoxy in our culture today is that unless the bureaucracy puts a stamp of approval on it, it's not safe to eat. That's the assumption in our culture. And what that does is it pushes everything that's innovative, it pushes it through this orthodoxy. One of the orthodoxies is that in order to be safe, food must be sterile. And that's why now it's perfectly legal to feed your kids Mountain Dew and Coca-Cola because that's sterile, but now raw milk, that's hazardous substance. And we're seeing now French-based artisanal cheeses going down like flies. No, I didn't mean that, flies, that wouldn't be good. They're going out of business because now there's this zero bacterial tolerance, for cheese. And the truth is, we want bacteria in our cheese. The fact is that 95% of bacteria is good. And if you have sterile cheese, it's like Velveeta, right? I mean, it's a cheese-like substance. Cheese is not supposed to be squirted out of a bottle. I mean, proper living cheese that gives us life, you actually should put a chunk of it on a table, walk away from it, and 48 hours later, it sprouts legs and walks to the other corner. It's got mold and stuff on it. Listen, if it won't rot, it won't digest. And the orthodoxy of our day is that you can continue to eat unrottable, undigestible food, and when you fall apart at 12, 13, 14, well, there's this medical community that can pharmaceutically fix you. The orthodoxy in our community is that if a farmer has a sick cow, they don't view their first assumption looking at that cow is, I guess she's pharmaceutically disadvantaged. On our farm, our first question is, I wonder what we did to break down the immunological terrain that allowed the cow to get sick. See, those are two completely opposite paradigms. Completely opposite paradigms. And so what we've got is this assumption that people are too stupid to be able to take control of their own, of their own food, their own food choices. As if somebody else is in charge of my 3 trillion member internal community. We've got 3 trillion beings in us. That's a lot. That's a big community. I mean, they're having schools and conferences, and they're probably, having hurricanes down there. Sometimes they do have hurricanes. But there's all sorts of stuff going on, and we know that their language, they're actually talking to each other. They have economies. I'll trade you one starch atom for a protein, and I'll trade you and the nematodes and the bacteria and all this. Do you know that we have 3 bacteria guardians around every single one of our cells? 3 bacterial guardians. I mean, MIT says we're only 15% human. We're 85% non-human. So when we look at each other, it kind of gives you a funny view of the other person. Is he really a person, or is that just the manifestation of all the bacteria moving around? And the truth is, that is what it is. The genes and the bacteria and all this, that is what it is. But the orthodoxy of our day is that we're far more mechanical than we are living. And so I got to wrap up. So what are we looking for? I think what we're looking for is we're looking for a time when the freedom and the liberty to choose our food actually is as important a right as the freedom to worship, the freedom to assemble, the freedom of speech. I mean, what good is it to have those freedoms if you don't have the freedom to choose your body's fuel to have enough energy to go pray and preach and assemble and write? And the only reason that our founders didn't guarantee us the freedom to choose our food was because they couldn't have imagined a day when, if I have an extra passel of beets and an extra chicken, that I couldn't kill them, put them together, make some nice heavy pot pie, and sell it to a neighbor. And lest anybody think that that I'm off the wagon here, remember that I can make that and give it to a neighbor, and now I'm considered a wonderful, neighbor-friendly, patriotic American. Thanks. But if that person that I've given it to says, "Oh, that was the best thing," my body, went into electric shock waves at your nutrient-dense pot pie. Could I buy one? Can't do that. See, so it's not about safety. It's about carefully regulating what's acceptable in the marketplace. That's what this is about. And the idea that safety is subjective, I think when a person comes out of the supermarket with a bunch of Hot Pockets and Jell-O pudding packages and DiGiorno's frozen pizza, I consider that risky behavior. Okay? And so the truth is that safe food, risky behavior is highly subjective. Okay? And all of us make those choices. Those of you who've had children, we see how some parents parent, and we cringe. Oh boy, that's risky parenting, and we do it our way and whatever. The fact is that these are not objective things. Safe food, unrisky behavior. It's highly subjective. But the problem is when we take back our own health, we take back our own food, we take back our own choices, we take back the responsibility for our internal 3 trillion member community, it suddenly disempowers the entire gross domestic product system predicated on profiting off of error and remediation. Isn't it hilarious that in our culture right now, if you pour a bunch of pollution into a stream and make that stream polluted, that's actually an asset in our gross domestic product because the cost of cleanup stimulates business. Is this not a crazy country or what? That our accounting does not view bad things as liabilities. Bad things create more jobs. Oh, we got more juvenile delinquents. We get to build more jails. GDP goes up. It's like Wendell Berry says. He says, what's wrong with us creates more GDP than what's right with us. If you stay married and grow your garden and all right, so imagine, Wendell Berry writes about, I'm going to be paraphrasing, I'll completely adulterate Wendell Berry, but anyway, he says, look, if a couple stays married, lives in one house, drives one car, grows all their own food, and has a milk cow, that doesn't add anything to GDP. But as soon as they get divorced and now have to have 2 jobs and 2 houses and 2 cars and don't have time to grow any of their own food, wow, GDP goes through the roof. So the point is that what's wrong with us creates more GDP than what's right with us. And we don't have enough cleverness or creativity to figure out how to turn what's bad into a liability. The point is that when people don't get sick, who needs the doctors? When animals don't get sick, who needs the veterinarians? When I buy directly from farmers or farmers markets or electronic aggregators like Relay Foods or whatever, when I buy from them, who needs the supermarket? Then who needs to advertise on TV? Suddenly the Super Bowl can't be played because we're not buying Jolly Green Giant beans. You see the ramifications? People ask me, well, what you do seems so simple and so intuitive. Why didn't everybody do this? I say, if everybody did what we did, it would completely invert the power, position, prestige, and profits of the entire global food and farming system. Whew. That's a lot of people with their oxes getting gored, right? When we grow our own fertility through carbon manure composting, who needs fertilizer? Well, then who needs to send the troops over to the Middle East to make sure petroleum is cheap so we can continue to get it to make chemical fertilizer? Oh, then we have to shut down the Pentagon. My goodness, when our community eats local food, who needs Walmart? They're the biggest giver to United Way. They get their big name and picture in for United Way gifts. When we fatten pigs on acorns, who needs hog factories? Who needs Smithfield and the Chinese to come in and buy them, to bail them out? When we graze our cows, who needs to plow, fertilize, spray, plant, harvest, transport, store, and carry feed to the herbivores? When our best and brightest young people think farming is cool, how will multinational Wall Streeters fill their Dilbert cubicles? I'm waiting for the day when the soccer moms are all gathered around and are all, bragging about their little child prodigies, and one of them has the audacity to say, well, my little Mary or Philip or whatever, is going to grow up to be a farmer, and all the other soccer moms go, wow, cool, awesome. So, to close, here's what we're looking for. See, and I'm assuming that we're all in the same tribe here, that there's not a Monsanto plant. So if there is, you might want to just be quiet today, because we might burn your doors down. So here's just some juxtapositions, I think. The orthodoxy of our day says we are a more successful culture when we have fewer farmers, because farmers are dolts and they're not very bright and we don't want very many. We say we want more farmers, okay? That we're good when there are more eyes and hands involved in our food. There's more integrity and accountability when there is more personal involvement. Orthodoxy says We want outsourced food, global food systems, and bring it in from Peru. We need to build more golf courses. We can't afford to use land for low uses. We say we want in-sourced food, local food that's close. It has a short chain of custody. Orthodoxy is we want cheap food. We say we want fair and internalized food. And in case you're wondering how in the world can you afford it, a lot of the things that I've touched on this morning are the reason why local food's expensive. It's not because it's small. It's not because it's inherently inefficient. It's because when you squeeze local food that's small through these industrial scale orthodoxies, it automatically becomes very expensive. The reason our bacon is $15 a pound is because we have to pay almost $8 a pound just to get it legally cured, legally packaged, legally sliced, and legally labeled. That costs us $8. Well, we're already over the supermarket, and we haven't even paid for the pig, the feed, our labor, or anything. Okay, and it has to go through two different places in order to get there. So a lot of this is just that sort of thing. Orthodoxy says soil is not alive. We just IV chemicals into it. We say soils are alive. They're living. There's 10 billion bacteria community per healthy handful of soil. Orthodoxy says we want efficiency as monocultures. We say efficiency is polycultures. They say we want control of choice. We want freedom of choice. They say we want nutritionally devalued stuff. Just make it, red dye 29 and Velveeta cheese. We say we want nutritionally dense or nutritionally enhanced. They want disrespect for life. Who cares about the pigness of the pig? We say we respect the pigness of the pig. That's how we have a culture that respects the Tomness of Tom and the Merriness of Marion. If you have a culture that just views a pig as an inanimate pile of protoplasmic structure to be manipulated however cleverly hubris can imagine, you will view your citizens with the same top-down, arrogant way, and other cultures. They say we want annuals and tillage-based. We say we want perennial, grass-based. They say we want food prepared outside the home. We say we want to prepare and package and process food in the home. In fact, I've decided that the new elite symbol of those who get integrity food, if you want to know, what's the status symbol? It's eating leftovers. You show me somebody that eats leftovers, and there's somebody who's cooking in the home. As everything in the system is about single portion, right? Microwavable, just nuke it and go, right? So let leftovers be your mantra. They want a system that's opaque. We want one that's transparent. They want one that is full of unpronounceable items in food. We want everything to be pronounceable. And if it's they want monospeciation and multisyllabic labels. Think about it. They want simplicity, segregated simplicity, monospeciation on the farm, but their label is unreadable because it's so complex. See? They want chemical-based, we want carbon-based. They want petroleum-driven, we want solar-driven. They want pathogen-enhancing, we want pathogen-limiting. They want vulnerable to bioterrorism, we want immune to bioterrorism. They want genetically narrow, we want genetically broad. They want wasteful, we want resourceful. They want technology-oriented, we want relationally oriented. They want juvenile information, we want time-tested information. They want tyrannized authority from the top down, we want democratized authority from the bottom up. I mean, you can go on and on and on here. Folks, it's amazing how different it is, okay? And so, I would just say that what we need to do is to appreciate that we live in a time of orthodoxy that is completely abnormal in human history. And that 100 years from now, the things that we view today as orthodoxy, they will absolutely fall apart. We're seeing the crumblings now. Salmonella, E. coli, we're seeing leukemia, type 2 diabetes, all the things that you're here for, okay? Those are the cracks in the orthodoxy that 100 years from now we'll look back and say, germ theory? What a nut-o! It's not germ theory, it's Beauchamp's terrain theory, right? It's the biome. It's all, that's going to be what our descendants, and they will look back at grandpa and grandma and say, what was wrong with you people? Twinkies? Snickers? Cheerios? Really? they're going to say, what's he doing? So I know that sometimes, if you're fairly new to this, the idea of being a heretic can be intimidating. What you have to learn, what you have to do, being against the system. Let me tell you something. It's Thanksgiving. The whole family is at the big, the family shindig, right? Thanksgiving dinner. And all the adults are talking. And the latest little family member, Emily Sue, right? She's like 8 months old, 9 months old, all right? Maybe 10. All right, 10 months old. And she's crawling around on the floor in her diaper. All the adults are talking. And Emily Sue comes over here. She gets on a chair leg and she climbs herself up and she holds herself up here. She kind of totters. And probably her mother, sees her first. Says, "Oh, look, Emily Sue! It's the first time she climbed up on a tree." She's all ecstatic and all going. And of course, all the adults immediately look at Emily Sue. Emily Sue standing there. She realizes now she's the center of attention, and she beams. Loses her focus, drops her grip, and plunks down on the floor on her diaper. Right? What do all the adults do? Well, they get around her and say, "Well, Emily Sue, if you can't walk any better than that, just quit." Is that what they say? No, they say, "Oh, come here, let me put your hand up here, I was trying to get it, right? See, the problem is that we become adults with this memory in our mind of some matriarch or patriarch who always looked over our shoulder and says, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. That's wrong. The truth is, if it's worth doing poorly first. Because we don't do anything right first. We don't walk well. We don't talk well. We don't write well. We don't poop well. Well, I guess we just don't know where to put it, right? Okay. We don't do any of that stuff well. And so the next time you're intimidated by, oh man, I don't know if I can make this, kombucha. I don't know if I can make this, I don't know if I can can. Is the canner going to blow up? I don't know if I can, dehydrate. What if it gets moldy? All these, I want you to go. Promise me, you'll go in your bathroom, look in your mirror, hike up your diaper, and say, if it's worth doing poorly first. Okay? And because that's the truth. And that will empower you to just go on. As my dad used to say, if at first you don't suck a seed, just suck and suck and suck until you do suck a seed. Right. So now may all of your carrots grow long and straight. May your radishes be large and not pithy. May tomato blossom end rot affect your Monsanto neighbor's tomatoes. May the coyotes be struck blind at your pastured chickens. May all of your culinary experiments be delectably palatable. May the rain fall gently on your fields, the wind be always at your back, your children rise and call you blessed, and may we all make our nest a better place than we inherited. Thank you so much for letting me do this. Thank you.